An unfortunate storyline on this Friday episode of Peacock and Williamson. We've got to touch on concussion protocols, everything that went on with Tua, a scary scene on Thursday Night Football. Of course, review what we saw on the field on Thursday Night Football as well with the Cincinnati Bengals and the Miami Dolphins, and make our picks for the Week 4 schedule. Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us once again here on the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson with you as always at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Brightco Jewelry and Watch Insurance. Brightco brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at bright.co/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. We will get to our picks for the rest of the non-six-pack games, our six-pack of favorites, including Bills, Ravens, Chiefs, Bucks we talked about on yesterday's program. We'll make the rest of our picks through Monday Night Football here for Week 4 today, Matt. But unfortunately, we've got to talk about concussion protocol in a scary game with Tua Tagovailoa. Just when you see the scene, you see the replays, and you see the way his hands curled up as he was on the ground, knowing what happened on a short week last Sunday on the field with something they called a back injury that clearly to the layperson looked like a head injury. There's big questions with the process here, and this has been a subject that we've seen before in the NFL, but clearly they don't have it figured out, and you've got to protect players from themselves, and we've got to do a better job of making sure that health is the number one priority, especially when it comes to head injuries around the NFL, and a really good reminder of that, unfortunately, on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, an ugly, brutal, scary scene. I mean, it sounds like the news since then is mostly positive. I mean, I hope he's all right, of course. It doesn't sound quite as bad as it looked, fortunately. We'll see. I'm sure there'll be a lot more, news in the next 10 days and next coming days here. A couple notes. I mean, obviously there was some controversy last week with the Dolphins and how they handled Tua, and is a back injury a spinal cord injury that leads to your brain? How vague are we going to be here? The Dolphins aren't exactly in the best graces with the other owners and commissioner after their tampering stuff to begin with. And I don't have a lot to add to this. I'm sure it'll be a big topic of discussion, but I've said for years now, and I understand why it exists, but asking these guys to play on super short weeks is not the best thing for their health from a league that has said over and over how important player safety is. If they really were, if that was top priority, they would have a bye week before these Thursday games, or they wouldn't exist at all.
It's got to go that way. And I don't know why Thursday? Why can't they have games on? Who cares? There's college football. There's high school football. Have the games on Saturday or Friday, even, an extra day.
Right.
Or like you said, a bye week before the Thursday games. But it's not safe for players to be out there on these short weeks. Sunday to Thursday is just kind of insanity that they thought that was something that was going to work anyway. And when it comes to head injuries and just something that obviously these protocols have to get looked over, and this is not a good situation for the Miami Dolphins there. And you really hope that Tua does, have a full recovery and everything is good with him. But again, that's kind of what it looked like last week. It was like, oh, hey, good news here. Tua's looking good. But it's like, no, you got to wait a while. You got to wait a long time. It's not just about how good he feels next week or the week after either. It's about, his life and his long-term health post football and CTE. And there's so many things that go into this. And you saw how it didn't even look like that bad of a hit, right? Which was more of an indication that there was already something going on, that he got knocked out that quickly from it. So very scary. And then, of course, he was replaced by Teddy Bridgewater, And Bridgewater looked okay. It's nice to have a professional backup that started games in the NFL. It was not enough. The Miami Dolphins were only able to put up 15 points against the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals made some plays, especially in the fourth quarter there, and Joe Burrow did enough and was finding T. Higgins numerous times, who was singled up, and that's kind of what we've seen with the Bengals is teams don't want to let Jamar Chase beat him deep, so they bottle him up, and you got a guy over the top there. That leaves a one-on-one on the other side, and it was a big night for T. Higgins, 7 for 124 and a touchdown.
Yeah, very well said. I think that has the Bengals are adjusting to, we're not going to give you the deep ball to Chase. We're not going to give you the after-the-catch stuff to Chase. You're going to have to be more patient, move the ball down the field. The Bengals still are not running the ball well at all, but Burrow played well. Higgins is a star. Boyd was quite good as well, and Chase wasn't, silent, that's for sure. I thought the Dolphins moved the football pretty well consistently, even with Bridgewater in there. 2 turnovers hurt them quite a bit. Massive day by Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's hasn't lost a thing, and then just is a game-changing player, of course. 10 for 160.
And to see Bridgewater able to get one down the field to him too was a good sign for the Dolphins, because you might have Bridgewater for a bit.
Yeah, and I'm a little worried about both running games, but I don't ding the Dolphins for this in big picture perception. I didn't think they were the best team in the league to begin with, but they're very much in the playoff hunt. Really difficult circumstances to try to get a win in this, in this environment.
That's what we talked about when we were previewing this game. Like, man, the Dolphins getting points, that seems like such a good bet, but just the away teams on the short week, it's so difficult. And do you think it was more a factor of the short week, or do you think the Bengals now are in a good situation at 2-2 after starting so bad at the beginning of the year, kind of getting a little bit right, kind of figuring some things out to where they're saying, okay, we're back, we're good, we're 500, now let's go win the division?
Yeah, I mean, they got the Ravens next week on a long week. I think that's great for them. They're now in a good spot after starting really slow. I obviously studied their first game a ton because that was Steeler week, and they looked like a team that hadn't played at all in the preseason. I think they were as good of example as there was in the league for a team that was totally rested, especially on offense, the entire preseason, and looked like that was their first preseason game. So I think they're starting to hit their regular season stride now.
More games to come. We're going to preview the rest of week 4, including Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, make our picks for the week 4 slate. But first, I got to let the folks out there know about Brightco. This is the way to protect your valuables. Rings, jewelry, engagement rings before you even propose, by the way, is the time to do it. As we've learned by some of the videos you can find at bright.co/locked on, watches, whatever it is you need to cover, you can do it very easily at Brightco. And the folks at Brightco are really smart. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring, your watch, whatever it is, so easy to get you covered in just 2 minutes on your cell phone. And when you watch some of the videos and some of the ways that folks lose their engagement rings, I mean, it is amazing. And by the way, you can lose your rings in other ways. I have a good buddy who lost his wedding ring surfing in the Pacific Ocean. And Matt Williamson, a great story he told a few weeks ago, losing his crystal earring on the basketball court.
Really miss it. Yeah.
And of course, it's not even just, you lose it in the water or, something that's very viral and some video where you're publicly proposing and you lose a ring. You might just lose it. You be like, where'd that watch go? I have no idea what happened to it. It's super valuable and you can't find it. And you can get comprehensive coverage no matter what happened, no matter if it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened to your jewelry or valuables. It's the fastest, easiest, cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jewelry insurance in the business. Brightco/locked on. That's bright.co/locked on. Here we go. Week 4 games, Matt. And something we didn't talk about yesterday because the Vikings and Saints was one of the games, but the rematch of that famous Stephon Diggs, right? With Williams coming over the top and getting there on time, but somehow not making the play. I didn't even think about the rematch aspect of Vikings and Saints.
No, I kind of forgot about all that as well. And that was, that's a classic.
Classic game there between the Vikings and the Saints. That one happening in London, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Early start. we did already make our picks in that game, but I just was completely reminded about that. And I don't know how I didn't think about that Vikings Saints classic. But let's go to Atlanta.
It sounds like Jameis Winston and Michael Thomas aren't going to play, by the way. We didn't really have that information yesterday. Yeah. So Saints are in a rough spot.
Very rough spot. And you get a home game. It's like, hey, congratulations. Here's your extra home game. Oh, by the way, it's as far away as you can go and play it.
Right. That too. Right.
Cleveland Browns on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. Browns coming in 2-1. The Falcons at home at 1-2. Cleveland, the road team, favored by just one single point here, Matt.
I've really come around on the Falcons offense. I think it's well designed. It's a big physical unit, kind of like Cleveland's, extra tight ends, and they run the football, big receivers. Mariota's playing well. But this Browns running game is ferocious. I really think they run the ball better than anybody in the league. That travels to me. I'm guessing we don't see Myles Garrett. So I think both these defenses could be a little bit vulnerable. But only 1 point is what I'm looking at for the road team. I think that they travel well enough to win this game on the ground.
It's interesting that the line is 1 point too, because the Atlanta Falcons, all of their games combined have come within 1 point. They lost by one to the Saints. They lost by 4 to the Rams, and then they won by 4 to the Vikings. So they're minus
it's been a
one
good year
on
for
the
Atlanta.
season. Yeah, they've been competitive in every single football game. Including against the Los Angeles Rams. Those the Super Bowl champions. You can say what you want about the Saints right now that we've learned, and the Seahawks, but the Saints were at full strength coming into the year, and the Rams were coming off a Super Bowl in week 2, and they've played them tough. So for that reason, I think the Falcons have shown a lot more than I think we expected coming into the year. They've got themselves a win. But we've seen the Browns this year just with the perfect complementary package of we're going to run the ball, we're going to not make mistakes in the passing game, and we're going to play a whole bunch of defense. And I think that could lead to a lot more wins than we expected. This game will be tight. I think 1 point is not enough. Cleveland's just a better team. Should be able to win this one by a field goal. So give me those Cleveland Browns.
Yep, me too.
But congratulations to the Falcons on not being a disaster so far this season.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's the same last year, too. And, you lost Matt Ryan, but Marcus Mariota's not a dynamic playmaker at quarterback, but he's a good player. But last year, their roster didn't look like a team that was going to, be. They
overachieved last year, too.
And they weren't a good team, but they still overachieved. Right. And I think that's what we're seeing with this Atlanta Falcons new regime there.
Yeah, it speaks to the coaching staff for sure. I'm impressed.
By the way, the top rookie as far as PFF grades go, the highest graded rookie according to PFF is Drake London. Falcons.
I think he's leader in the clubhouse for rookie of the year, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Especially with no quarterback being in the mix, right?
Yeah. Until we see Kenny Pickett. More on that later.
Could be soon.
How about the Washington Commanders at the Dallas Cowboys? Washington coming in at 1-2. 2-1 Cowboys at home, and Cooper Rush holding his head above water makes you feel a lot better about this Cowboys team until Dak comes back.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm willing to sacrifice 3.5 in Dallas. I think I will. I'm just down on Washington. We saw Wentz get sacked a million times. Now he goes to the home of the sack. Happiest defense in the league. I think the Cowboys offense is good enough, and I'm really down on Washington's defense, especially their back 7. This is more of a vote against Washington than one for Dallas. I wish it was 2.5, not 3.5. But I give the Cowboys credit too, much like we did Atlanta. I thought they were cooked, and now they're hanging around. They're surviving.
Give me the Cowboys in this one as well. I will give up I will give up a field goal pretty easily in this one. And by the way, you can find all the lines and betting odds at BetOnline where the game starts. And Washington is one of those teams that's up and down, but this is a division matchup. Those tend to be tight. So I'd probably stay away from this game, to be honest with you. But if I'm have to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on those Dallas Cowboys. And look, Micah Parsons is unblockable, and that's a bad combination with what we've seen with Wentz in that Commanders passing game so far.
Absolutely. That's the big thing to me.
Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions in week 4. We've got the Detroit Lions not only favored, but favored by 4 points. They're setting records on how favored they are on those betting lines, because we have not seen that for a very long time for the Detroit Lions, and the Seahawks going in the opposite direction right now. Seahawks on the road, home team, Detroit Lions favored by 4. Both teams coming in at 1-2 on the season.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the status of the receivers are, but we're not going to see Swift. I still think this is a very good Lions offense to control the line of scrimmage, Jamal Williams could be in for a big day. I'm not fond at all of where Seattle is right now, especially their defense, but really both sides of the ball. I think this might be a blowout. I think I'm gladly going to lay the 4.
I'm going to go the other way on this one, Matt.
All right.
I think this is a Seattle Seahawks team, similar to what we talked about with the Atlanta Falcons. They might lose a lot of games, but I think they're going to lose a lot of games close. And with the Detroit Lions, their best player, Amon-Ra St. Brown, banged up on the offensive side of the ball, no Swift. I think Seattle can come in and keep this game at least close. So I'm betting against a blowout for the Lions and thinking this game's going to end within a field goal one way or the other. So I'm going to take the points. I'm going to take the Seattle Seahawks to keep it close and maybe still lose this one.
I hear you. It's certainly possible. Pete Carroll could, keep this thing very respectable.
Again, the Lions, I'm just not going to buy big favorites on them quite yet. I need to see a little bit more. And especially because Amon-Ra St. Brown has been their entire offense with the way he's.
No, you're right.
It's sort of like imagine if the Los Angeles Rams still had Jared Goff at quarterback, but then Cooper Kupp was out. You know what I mean?
It's kind of that feel to it, right?
That's kind of how I feel about the Lions offense right now. It's not something that I'm just going to be like, oh, Lions, cool. They've arrived. They're great. And let's make them a big favorite. I'm not buying
it. I trust the offense. I trust the offensive line. The defense isn't great. I just am really down on Seattle.
You should be down on Seattle. Aside from that Week 1 win, which is their only win of the season against Russell Wilson coming back to town with the Denver Broncos, we've seen how bad the Denver Broncos started. The Seahawks have been just straight up bad the other 2 weeks. The other 2 games. I mean,
they're just short on talent.
Right. They could do nothing against a good defense in Week 2. They only scored because of a blocked field goal attempt. So that's that doesn't bode well for the Seattle Seahawks. You're right. And you should be down on the Seahawks. I'm just not as high on the Lions either.
I hear you.
Yes.
I see that angle. Yeah.
How about the Bears and New York Giants? The 2-1 Bears and the 2-1 Giants. This is a playoff implications here, Matt, with two teams.
Oh, massive. Right. Home field advantage for the playoffs. Yeah.
And look, one of these teams is going to be 3-1. If you said at the beginning of the season to any Bears fan or any Giants fan, hey, you'll be 3-1 after 4 weeks of the season, they would say, yes, give me that all day long. I cannot believe it. I'm doing backflips. And that's going to be a reality unless they
Or they're going to say, that's the worst thing I ever heard because now we're not going to pick in the top 5 and we're not going to get the player we really want because we really aren't good despite our record. And I don't think either one of these teams is close to being good. The Giants are not hiding their quarterback nearly as much as the Bears are. I think the Bears D's probably a little better. Wish I knew who was going to catch passes from the Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson, Tony Shepard, all these guys are, not available or questionable. And
well, I'll tell you who's gonna catch passes. It's former 49ers legend Richie James. He leads the team.
That's your guy, yeah.
146 yards. I loved Richie James back in the day. If you listen to Locked On 49ers, it was like a kind of a running joke, and I knew he wasn't amazing, but I was like, propping up Richie James every chance I could. I really liked Richie James as a player, and I love that he's getting a chance. But if Richie James is your best receiver, that's not a great sign for your offense. Don't love the way Daniel Jones is playing either. But both of these teams, the formula. It's like we're going to run the heck out of the ball, and hopefully that's going to be enough and hide our quarterback. So which team does a better job of running the ball and hiding the quarterback? This is a pick'em game with the Giants getting that 3 points at home. I have no idea which way it's going to go, but I'm going to take the points because I don't.
Me too.
It's a coin flip for me. So give me the points, and I love the way the Bears have been able to run the ball, and I like the way both of these teams are playing under their new coaching staffs. They're just both undermanned at this point.
100%. And I was going to say the same thing. I think these are equally bad teams despite winning records. One of them will be 3-1, which is nuts. I'll just take points.
Give me points. Give me points all day there. How about the Jets and your Pittsburgh Steelers, Matt? The New York Jets at 1-2 on the road at Pittsburgh, who is also 1-2. Looks like about a 3.5 point favorite for those Steelers at home.
I think I'll take the Steelers. The Jets are better than their record. I've studied them quite a bit. I would be more confident in taking the points and the road team if Flacco was the quarterback, just because I don't think he'll hurt the team. Maybe Wilson turns a corner and looks like a different guy, but he was so bad last year. And I think he threw 5 passes in the preseason. Now he's getting thrown into the mix against a defense that throws a lot at you on the road. I mean, I love the Jets' weapons. I think the Jets' D-line can cause problems, but I think the Steelers cover, but their offense is really rough too.
You got to take the Steelers at home here because
Yeah.
of what you just laid out. And and if you're the Jets, I get it. You have to go back to your young quarterback once he's healthy. But Flacco, you have a baseline there, and with Zach Wilson, maybe the ceiling's there at some point, but not playing a lot in the preseason, injury, coming back in, on the road, that's a tough ask. And so I love what I've seen from Garrett Wilson, but you kind of got to fade him this week in your daily fantasy leagues. And just kind of wait and see what it looks like with Zach Wilson. Maybe kind of sitting back and watching a little bit will be helpful for Zach Wilson. Maybe we see that guy now, and he takes off from here on out the rest of his career. But there's enough questions for me to stay way away from the Jets, at least in this one for sure. Maybe you feel a little bit better about taking some points for them next week, but give me those Pittsburgh Steelers. And really, the Steelers aren't playing at a level that they were going to get enough points to scare me away from them.
I hear what you're saying. And if you remember last year, Wilson missed, I think, 3 games with injury. And when he came back and, got away from the game a little bit, I thought he was a little better, understood the speed of the game, exhale, so I'm not writing the book on the guy. It's just last year was really bad. No one's told me this, but if the Steelers stumble here, maybe it's Pickett time after that.
I think it's got to be
that's just my hunch,
at some point. And what's the Steelers bye week, by the way?
Not for a while. Their schedule coming up is ridiculously hard. Their next 4 games are against the Bills, Bucks, Eagles, and somebody else great. So it's not
a great
easier.
Time. Not a great time to throw the rookie in there. But we'll see how it goes for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Probably a low scoring game here. This is one of those where you take the under. Just because it's low scoring too, does that mean you might want to take the points in the Jets?
Possibly. Can't. I mean, I'm looking at 3. You said 3.5. It's been moving all week. 3.5, I would have a much easier time because this could definitely be a field goal game.
Mm-hmm. More games from week 4, including 49ers and Rams, a divisional battle there in the West on Monday Night Football. We've got an AFC West one with the Broncos and Raiders, and a whole lot more to get to from week 4. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out your team-specific podcast, the local expert covering your team, no matter the sport, every single day. Next up is the Los Angeles Chargers at the Houston Texans. This is sort of a get-right game, I think, for the Chargers, with Herbert looking like he's going to get through this rib problem. He played through it last week, and I'm sure he's going to get whatever injections he needs throughout the rest of the year, and hopefully that starts to heal up to where he doesn't need any injections, and we can see the high-level Herbert that we expected to see coming into the year. On the road, though, a banged-up Chargers team favored by 5 points against the Texans. Is this one? I think it was our guy Winston that had a question earlier this week asking why we're always questioning the Texans and why they're never favored. And look, here they are at home against an injured team, and they're still 5-point dogs. Is this the home dog you want to take this week in the Texans?
No, I think Winston said something like, and then we always conclude the sentence with, and I'll take the other team. All this stuff about the Texans, and then I'll bet against them. And I will again. I expect Herbert to be healthier, a little better. Maybe Keenan Allen returns. They have injury issues, but I mean, just the talent gap between the Chargers and Texans is unbelievably massive. I mean, even without Slater, even without Bosa, I think the Texans have a real tough time in this one.
Winston, I'm taking the points. Give me the home underdog.
Oh,
Houston
baby.
Texans in this one. I don't like a combination of high-level important pieces on any team. Quarterback banged up, no left tackle, no stud edge rusher, banged up in the secondary.
Those things are pretty important.
That's a bad combination. And the Houston Texans are a professional football team. They've dueled to a tie so far this year, 0-2-1 on the year. This is 5 points. The Chargers can win by a field goal, get out of there. You still win your bet. So how about that one, Winston? Give me the Texans here. Give me those. The Arizona Cardinals at the Carolina Panthers. No offense to Cardinals and Panthers fans. This is probably one of the afternoon games I'm not going to be tuning into very closely because of some of the other games on the schedule, because these two teams have been ugly and have not been fun to watch so far this year. Can they turn it around, Matt, is the question.
I'm down on both coaches. I would love to bet against both teams. I'm not excited that they're playing each other. I'm not going to spend a ton of attention on this one. But I'm going to bet on Kyler. I mean, Kyler versus Baker this year is night and day. I do think the Carolina defense could be the difference in this one. I mean, if things go well and Carolina wins it, we're going to be talking about that defense. But I think Kyler makes enough plays to win this one on the road.
Yeah, and I know they're on the road, but if you're going to get a point or two, kind of watch this line as it goes. Give me the Cardinals, and I'll take points there on the road. And I just believe in the playmaking ability of their quarterback more than anything else. And even when you look at the rest of the offense for the Carolina Panthers, Christian McCaffrey's carrying the load, but it's not an impressive load that he's carrying. He's not at that level that we've seen from him in the past. He's probably the number 2 overall pick in a lot of fantasy leagues, and he's not really producing to that level, even though his share of the offense is still what you would expect for a star player like McCaffrey. And you wonder, some of these running backs get into that second contract, and it's sad. It's really not a fun thing for football fans, but you get into your mid to late 20s, do you start to just be done every single time? Like, that's what we're seeing around the league.
Yeah, his usage is great. His production's okay. And one other note here is I love that it's a 4:00 start for the West Coast team going all the way across. That should be a little easier on them.
Yes, great point. That's a fantastic point there. How about the Broncos and the Raiders? It is a 1:25 Pacific, 4:25 Eastern start time with the 2-1 Broncos at the 0-3 Raiders. We kind of buried the Raiders already, but I mean, you got to start winning some games in your division if you want to have any chance, because you're not mathematically out of it, but at some point you are going to be, and there's going to be other questions about this team.
Something to be said for a desperate football team, even this early, and I think the Raiders are officially in desperation mode. Maybe you're going to see fake punts, flea flickers, throw everything that you have in the playbook to win this one. I'll take the points. I don't know who I like to win this one, though, and my reasoning isn't the Russell Wilson bet. It's the Broncos defense, to me, has clearly been the best of the 4 units playing in this game. I mean, that's the only one that's been even above average thus far. So I think they keep this thing really close. I hope it's a big Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon type of game. I would hope Denver understands that's really what they need to do. But I'm a little shocked they're getting points, to be honest with you.
Both new head coaches for these two teams. I've not been impressed at all from what I've seen from either team so far this year. But give me the home dog here, Raiders. They're not as bad as their 0-3 record looks, and the Broncos probably haven't even played as good as their 2-1 record. They've been pretty bad all 3 weeks of the season so far. So give me those Raiders here in week 4 to get off the schneid and get their first win of the season. That brings us to, Matt, Monday Night Football. It is the San Francisco 49ers at 1-2 hosting the 2-1 Los Angeles Rams. The 49ers at home at 1-2, favored by 1.5 points here. I was a little bit surprised to see the 49ers favored by so much, but Kyle Shanahan has had Sean McVay's number. But aside from that, I really have liked what I've seen from the Rams, especially the last 2 weeks. And look, week 1, extended preseason for them. They didn't play anybody in the preseason, and they ran into the juggernaut of the Buffalo Bills in week 1. So if you give them a pass there and you just look at the last 2 weeks, you definitely got to think that the Rams should be the favorite. So did not love what I saw from the 49ers offense. I'm taking the under. Niners defense has been great. 49ers offense has been bad. But give me the points and give me the Rams on the road here. And they might have figured things out in the playoffs and sort of, killed Goliath a little bit with the 49ers having their number recently.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I really would worry, and I'm sure you've touched on this, Niners O-line versus Aaron Donald. Not that Donald's been quiet, but you could see one of those breakout, I'm the best defensive player in the league type of games. I know Shanahan's done well against them, but that Niner O-line is really worrisome for me. The Rams O-line, though, isn't much better. I mean, it's a bunch of no-name guys. They usually make it work. I think that's been a struggle for them, and the Niners front is nasty, as you know. I think I want the points here. I think the Rams would be a little higher on my power ranks if we were to do that right now. This should be a really good game, though. I think this will be highly competitive.
I think it'll be close. I think it'll be low scoring when whoever makes that one big play. And you're right, the stars are going to come out on defense. It's going to be Bosa. It's going to be Donald. Whoever amasses the most sacks there might be the team that wins this game. All right. That is week 4. Of course, Matt and I will be back on Monday to break it all down. Thanks for making us your first listen right here, Peacock and Williamson.